Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Norman Jr., a.k.a. Tranquilized Man. The return will be greater. That's right, man. You know what I don't understand? You have a fighter who loses a fight. And people just really decide to crap on him. You know what I'm saying? Turn their backs on him. I mean, if you weren't a fan of theirs for whatever reason, maybe they said something, maybe they did something that you didn't agree with, but to just dislike, just want to say the most horrible things about a fighter just because they lost, that shit is crazy. Especially when, you know, and look, this sounds so cliche, but if you've never, walked in their shoes, these guys are on the biggest stage. This goes to Devin Haney, goes to Adrian Broner, goes to Wilder, goes to AJ. It goes to every fighter. Tyson Fury, it goes to Sugar Ray Leonard. Everyone, any and everyone, man, who's put on boxing gloves and fought professionally for our entertainment. I get a little bit of trash talk. We all have senses of humor. We all gonna make jokes. But not some of the stuff that I see. Some of the stuff is, to me, is just crazy. You know, that even I just went and started blocking people because I can't I can't handle that shit. You know what I'm saying? It just is disgusting to me. I can get the jokes, but when I see people, you know, saying really, really crazy stuff about these guys, especially about just crazy stuff, I'm not even gonna repeat it. And I'm like, this is bad. But anyway, for me, Brian Norman Jr., he's gonna return, and I think the return will be greater. The fight last night was, the first round looked like it was going to be the Brian Norman Jr. show, a.k.a. Tranquilized Man. Was going to do his thing and tranquilize Devin. But what I really feel happened, I've talked about this before, I'm not going to keep beating a dead horse. I just think the first round was so easy, so straightforward, and everybody was saying the same thing. Like, what is this? Devin Haney hasn't recovered from the Ryan Garcia defeat. He doesn't want to fight. And then Devin in the second round, I don't know if Devin was setting a trap, but not doing anything in the first round, if he was downloading data, or if Devin in that second round was just waiting, and he saw an opportunity, and he took it. It was a risk. It paid off big time, because that one shot, it affected the remainder of the fight. Now, you know, that's my opinion. But what I will say is, Brian Norman Jr. came into the fight with Devin Haney, and I do believe he was attempting to cement his status as a powerful, aggressive welterweight champion, which is what he has proven to be. But again, it was the second round. Haney struck with precision and landed a check left hook and followed with a right cross that dropped Norman. Now, Norman got up really fast, but that knockdown wasn't just a flash knockdown, okay? It was a legit knockdown. It severely damaged Brian Norman Jr., and I think, I don't know if his nose got damaged by that shot, but bottom line is, it severely damaged him. And then after that, the tone of the fight shifted, you know, dramatically, and a lot of us were sitting here wondering what the hell just happened, because you didn't expect Devin Haney to have that to have power to knock down Brian Norman Jr. And even now that a lot of people sitting here having a conversation, they're like, where'd that come from? And I got to be fair. Put on my fan, man. People think that shit's a joke. I ain't gonna explain that, but man, let me tell you something. Getting caught in the sandstorm ain't no joke. But that has nothing to do with this. But I think a lot of us were just wondering. Devin Haney wasn't doing that kind of shit at the lower weight classes. How was he able to come out here, man, and do that? And know what I think? I talked about it in other videos. Now, everyone knows I've been picking Brian Norman Jr. to win. Straight through. I said Devin Haney can win. Devin Haney can fight. Devin Haney can scrap. Devin Haney may be following the Crawford blueprint, working with Snack, putting on functional mass, where he maintains a speed of a 135-pounder, but has, no kidding, the power of a welterweight. But Devin Haney's not Terrence Crawford. And when you saw the fight shift the way it did, I was even thinking to myself, but then my internet started acting up and shit. I missed like 4 or 5 rounds. But I was even thinking to myself that he must have followed the Crawford blueprint. But I've been saying this for months too. Haney may follow the Crawford blueprint and put on that function mask. So that could be what it was. But others are saying, no, it has nothing to do with that. The punch landed right on the button. And Norman didn't see it coming, and that's why it hurt him the way he did. They always say in boxing is the shots you don't see that really hurt you. But the bottom line is that shot did hurt him, and Norman never really regained full momentum. He was hesitant, his typical aggression dampened, and he struggled to close the distance consistently. Someone commented, yeah, he was just in there throwing power shots, swinging wildly. That's because he's in fight or flight mode. Unless you've actually been in a sparring session or been in a fight and you've been hurt, you wouldn't understand some of the things that's going on inside his mind. He wanted to get his get back, but he didn't want to get hit again. He didn't want to get hurt. He was in fight or flight mode pretty much the rest of the fight. And Devin did a really good job stalling and dragging out the fight and making it boring as hell. But Devin did what he had to do to win the rounds and to get to the decision. Now, I will say this. Devin Haney leaned heavily on his jab. Devin was throwing a power jab. He wasn't there coochie-cooing with that jab. That jab was bringing some heat, boy. But again, a lot of people are sitting there wondering, where did a powerful jab like that come from? And I'm going to sit there and I'm going to attribute Devin Haney's, maybe his newfound power, to functional mass, training with brilliant people, and just having a proper game plan. I don't think people should come out here and say Devin Haney was microdosed and Devin Haney was on pads. That's not fair. Just like when Brian Norman Jr. is knocking people out and these other fighters are knocking people out, if you're not going to say it then, don't come saying it now about Devin. And remember, Devin didn't knock him out cold. If Devin would have hit him with one shot and knocked him out cold, you can understand, because you've never seen Devin do it. Well, early in his career, when he first started fighting on the zone, he had a Hispanic guy he caught on the ropes and hit him with a big-ass right hand, damn near killed him. But outside of that, you don't see Devin do that. But he leaned heavily on the jab, used slick footwork, and employed frequent clinching to frustrate Norman on the inside. And it worked. And as the rounds progressed, once my internet, I actually had to go order the damn fight because something led to something. But the rounds progressed, Norman was trying to mount a comeback, showing signs of life mid-fight, but Haney reasserted control in the later rounds. But Norman was trying, and I do believe if he was able to avoid that big shot, I do think that Norman would have won the fight. But the bottom line is, doesn't matter what I believe, we got to deal with the reality. And the reality is, Devin Haney, risk-averse man, went in there and did the business against Norman Jr., a.k.a. Tranquilized Man. But what I am going to say is, I'm listening to what fans are saying, but I also watched the fight just like you all. And many of us feel Haney was overly passive at times and relied too much on wrestling-free clinches to stall. Let me tell you something. Devin Haney settled for convenience instead of chasing greatness. That's a fact. That was Devin Haney's moment to give Turki Al-Sheikh and the boxing fans drama. Instead, he settled for convenience, not greatness, and he went on to win. 114, 113, 116, 111, 117, 110. So he's very fortunate to get the win. He's very fortunate to get the knockdown, because when you see one scorecard, 114, 113, that just lets you know without the knockdown and Brian Norman Jr. having all of his faculties and Brian Norman Jr. being able to be aware and not be hesitant, I'm telling you, he probably would have won that fight. That's what makes it so interesting, because there is going to be a rematch, is what it sounds like. And my thing is, for the rematch, how much better can Devin get? How much better can Brian Norman Jr. get? But at the same time, who's going to enter the rematch with the confidence? Who's going to enter with the uncertainty? And the first fight, we knew who had the confidence. It's Brian Norman Jr. And Devin had the uncertainty. I don't care what anybody says. Devin didn't enter that fight confident. No way. That shot he landed in the second round, he threw it. He just threw it. That's like somebody going down to the local corner store, like I mentioned in another video, buying a lottery ticket. One lottery ticket. And boom, they hit the jackpot, 100 million. And now all of a sudden, people are running up to him talking about, oh, can you teach me about investments? I'm trying to grow my portfolio. He can't help you, man. He about one goddamn ticket from the local corner store. Now y'all think this man is some kind of financial analyst, some kind of guru on investing? No. Got lucky. So with Devin Haney, will he enter the rematch with confidence? I don't know. Because during that fight, he didn't show me much of anything to convince me that Devin has this newfound confidence in his skill and his power and his chin. He just took an opportunity and it paid off. I would have liked to see him. He threw the 1-2 a few times, but I really would have liked to see Devin just go for the gusto. I think he could have got Brian Norman Jr. out of there. Norman Jr. was hurt, man. When you got a dead man in front of you, when you got a hurt man in front of you, you're supposed to get him up out of there. But it is what it is. But as far as the punch stats, the volume of punches, look, man, the punch stats paint a pretty stark picture, in my opinion. I actually went out here and pulled some of that shit up. Where is it? Okay, right here. Norman threw, now this is what's being reported on the internet, right? So don't poke me in the eyeball if you actually counted them and got something different. Norman threw 388 total punches, but only landed like 13. And I just have a tough time believing these numbers, right? Given a shockingly low rate of about 3%. You know, when you break that down, out of 242 jabs thrown, he only landed 11. That's 5%. And from 146 power shots, he connected with just 2, or 1%. That just sounds, I just sounds off. But I missed some of the rounds because the damn something led to something. But in contrast, Haney threw 214, landing 30, about 14% of his shots. Of the 118 jabs, he landed 16, about 14%. And of his 96 power shots, he landed 14, about 15%. So if those numbers are accurate, to put that in context relative to Norman's prior fights, per his pre-fight analytics, he averaged around 374 punches thrown per fight. So in this bout, he was actually above his average in sheer volume, 388 versus 374, but his land rate was dramatically worse. In other words, he threw like, let me tell you something, man. Haney and Norman threw about the same. The difference is, Norman didn't really connect. But you know what, when you see guys come out here and perform like that, especially like Norman Jr., I think what Bill Haney said gives us a little bit of insight in what could have gone wrong with Brian Norman Jr. You see, that knockdown in the second round, it clearly had more than a physical effect. Psychologically, it took something out of him. It's like it shook his confidence. He became more tentative, very cautious about letting his hands go. And I think Devin had more power than what they expected. And then all of a sudden, man, his guard dropped, footwork stiffened, and typical forward surge was gone. It was just, he set it all aside. He didn't trust his shots, likely fearing another one of them Devin Haney hooks or right hands were gonna land. And Devin Haney fought that whole fight just waiting to counter. Devin Haney didn't really take the lead. He was just sitting back waiting, coiled up like a snake, ready to strike again. And Brian Norman Jr. wasn't trying to be on the front foot and press the fight after he got clipped. But anyway, we'll see in the next fight what happens between Devin Haney and Brian Norman Jr. I will say when Brian Norman Jr. did try to mount an offense, Haney was just neutralizing him with his power jab and just smothering the clinches, which again was forcing Norman to reset, and it was just disrupting his rhythm. But he and his pops got to work on some things, because when Bill Haney said, basically, and I'm paraphrasing, Devin Haney is a result of a boxing community, and then Brian Norman Jr. was basically taught boxing in a garage. There may be a little bit of truth to what he's saying. I don't know if I agree wholeheartedly, but I understand what he's saying, because there was a lack of head movement, and then he kept walking into clinches. And those things were exposed last night in the fight with Devin Haney. In addition to that, fatigue may have set in, and the psychological toll of being dropped, having a damaged nose, and being kept off balance could have made his output more cautious, less explosive, you know what I'm saying? So those are all interesting talking points, but there's a whole lot of truth to that. But for the rematch, which I do believe is going to be a rematch, based on what Norman Jr. said, that they got, y'all see me again real soon, and let me see, what exactly did he say? I'll just tell you what he said. I'll tell you exactly what he said. Let me go to my profile. I'll tell you exactly what he said. Because it was interesting to me. I'll go ahead and play it again for you.
Lewis Art for the Ring magazine here with Brian Norman Jr. Not your night tonight against Devin Haney. Just sum up to me the thoughts and feelings a couple minutes, I guess, after the fight.
Shoot, it's a part of the game. That's what I signed up for. But y'all best believe y'all gonna see me again real soon.
Yeah. Was there anything that Devin done that surprised you today?
No, not really. Not at all. It was all on my end.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, there was the knockdown as well. What was going through your mind at that moment when it happened?
Shoot, like, keep going. That's all it was. Of course, I got caught with something, most of a flash knockdown. But shoot, I got right back up, got right back into the action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously, just speaking there about the headbutt as well. Did that, I guess, cause a problem for yourself, would you say?
Slightly. I mean, when I felt the headbutt, it was like, hey, it is what it is. I think it was like around 10, 11, or 12. It was close to the end, so I said, hey, you don't need to see anyway. Just keep throwing punches. So that was the whole game plan when I got caught with the headbutt.
How much do you feel like you learned, from this fight?
Learned a lot about myself. That's all that matters. I learned a lot.
Well, I guess, what was it like being in the ring with Devin? I know you said there was nothing that done it surprised.
Yeah, but just another guy, just another opponent. Of course, he was the better man, but it's just this what I do.
Mm-hmm. How much, I guess, does this spur you on, I guess, for the future now?
One more time.
How much does that spur you on for the future now, wanting to win a world title once again?
Oh yeah, I'm alive. He gonna see me again real soon.
Now, what that tells me, where he says, I'm alive, and he's gonna see me again real soon, that tells me that there's gonna be a rematch. But if there is going to be a rematch, there's some adjustments Norman needs to make, 100%. Now, I see some people are suggesting that he gets rid of his father. Let me tell you something. How could you even think to give that kind of advice? Man, these guys should never get rid of their fathers, man. But what they should consider is maybe bringing somebody on who can, give a different perspective, another set of eyes, a different set of lens, who may see some things where they're like, we can do this better, or this isn't something you're doing, and someone who can really build on the foundation his father already laid. You got a guy who can fight and who has really heavy hands. So if you bring the right person in, maybe they can help to put together a multi-layered game plan. Maybe they can work on him, mentally resetting and some durability work. Because I do think that first, he needs to train mentally for adversity. Work with sports psychologists to recondition his response to being hurt or dropped so he doesn't timidly shut down. That's what he needs to do during this downtime where he's just resting and just trying to, get healthy, enjoy family. Going out there, talk to a sports psychologist and try to get beyond getting hurt and getting dropped so that mentally he can lock in when he starts back training. I think he needs to build drills and sparring where he takes a hard shot, stays composed, and regains offense. So the mental reset and durability work is key. Then improve his connect rate. Just throwing a whole lot of shots, that's Amir Khan style, but even Amir Khan was landing, but he's just coming in and throw a whole bunch of shots. I think he needs to improve his connect rate. Volume alone isn't enough. He must develop work to make more of his punches land. That means improving precision, timing, and setups. He might need to sharpen his feints, different type of feint, head feints, shoulder feints, foot feints, just work on his feints and set up his power with more jabs or throw combinations off movement. These are all things he needs to do to improve his connect rate. Then better distance management and footwork. You're getting there against a smart boxer like Devin Haney, especially in a rematch. It's your time to shine and regain what Devin Haney took from you. But I'll say this, Norman can't just bulldoze forward. He's got to mix his attacks, use angles, and work on slips, pivots, and footwork to avoid Haney's jab and counters. Haney is 95% of the time always postured to counter. Haney's not necessarily trying to initiate anything unless he sees an opening. He'll take the risk and jump in. Haney was jumping in with hooks, uppercuts. I'm sure they worked on that in training camp. Those were the shots he was looking to land and looking to hurt Brian Norman Jr. with. Furthermore, Brian Norman Jr. has to diversify his punch selection, maybe more uppercuts or overhanders to catch Haney when he's backing up or ducking. And he definitely has to figure out takedown or the clinch stretch, you know what I mean? Fight dirty if you got to. Sometimes dirty boxing is necessary. The clinch work or even effective inside fighting, anything to disrupt Haney's rhythm. But you want to be a clean fighter, you want to be a fair fighter, but you can make it rough and borderline dirty. You just can't lunge in and risk getting countered. And then more importantly than anything is make sure you got the conditioning to fight in that last round the same way you fought in that first round. Got to have conditioning for the later rounds. He showed glimpses in the middle, but for a rematch, he needs to be sharp. He needs to be dangerous late. Endurance and sparring must replicate the stress of 12 rounds, particularly a high output burst where he tries to push the pace. That's really, really important, in my opinion. Now, one thing a lot of people aren't talking about, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about it, is the impact of poor acclimation, time change, environment. Like that can affect a fighter. When you travel to a new country with a drastically different time zone, climate, environment, it can significantly affect a fighter's performance. Disruption of that circadian rhythm, and I'm going to tell you again, when it comes to that circadian rhythm, your internal clock, some people say circadian rhythm, however you want to pronounce it, bottom line, jet lag, right? It can impair sleep, reaction time, cognitive sharpness, and recovery. These are facts. I'm not making this up. When your body clock is misaligned, your alertness peaks at suboptimal times. You're more prone to fatigue, slower decision making, and reduced punch output. Looks like some of that may have shown up last night in that ring for Brian Norman Jr., in addition to Devin landing that shot from the gods. Travel fatigue from long flights adds to this, and then dehydration, disrupted routine, cramped quarters, poor sleep, and stress can all degrade readiness. In high-stake fights, even a small drop in reaction time or energy can be the difference between landing a counter or getting clipped. And last night, what did we see? We saw Brian Norman Jr. get clipped. So as far as him landing like 6 days before the fight, I don't know how true that is, but what I will say is I did some research, okay? And based on research and best practices, a boxer should ideally arrive several days to a week in advance, depending on how many time zones they cross. For each time zone cross, it could take about 1 full day to resync circadian rhythms. Many athletes traveling for major competitions arrive about 2 weeks ahead, especially when the environment, altitude, weather, humidity differs substantially. And then some research and athletes report suggests they arrive 2 to 4 weeks before for full recovery from jet lag and adaptation, so you can spar and just be on the same time with the location. And if they arrive like 5, 6 days, even 7 days before the fight, they were nowhere close to the 2 to 4 weeks before for a full recovery, and that definitely can affect you. And I'm not the only one who's traveled. I know there's a lot of people here, whether you were in the military or not, you've traveled and you've been places on business trips or on vacation. And some of you have been there for a day, for a week, for a month. Some of us have been places for 4 months, 6 months, a year. We know what that shit is like. It takes a while to acclimate. And like I've said before, I've seen people, they just never adjust. They never adjust. But anyway, during that camp, they just need to focus on consistent sleep, wake schedules, light exposure, morning sunlight, blackout at night, nutrition, hydration, and warm-up work matching fight time conditions. So they got to just align themselves and their training and their program on the schedule that they're going to need to be at to be ready to fight at whatever time their fight's going to take place. And also, I don't know what they did to prepare for fight conditions, but they need to simulate fight conditions in sparring under local humidity, altitude, or heat to acclimate physically. So there's a lot of things that we can sit here and talk about, but at the end of the day, when it comes to boxing, the best fighter doesn't win. It's the boxer who fights the best on that night. Devin was the guy who fought the best on that night. And Devin deserves all the credit in the world. But I'll say this, Norman Jr.'s loss to Haney was not just a technical or tactical breakdown. It seems to have been a mental collapse post-knockdown, combined with inability to connect his punches. Statistically, his output wasn't vastly different from past fights, but his effectiveness was shockingly low, 3% connect. It kind of reminds me of Regis Prograis when he was fighting Catterall, and Regis Prograis was throwing shots that were just like ghost shots. Wasn't hitting anything. He was just, I don't know what the hell Regis Prograis was doing, but it was shockingly weird to see Regis Prograis throw punches and just hit the air. But anyway, for a rematch, Brian Norman Jr. got to rebuild his confidence, man. Sharpen the precision, manage distance better, diversify his offense, and condition for later rounds. On top of that, environmental and travel factors might have weighed on him. Future camps should prioritize arriving early, or early enough anyway, to acclimate fully to the time zone, climate, and fight conditions if, in fact, he gets to fight with Devin, the rematch, and they're going to be back in Saudi. You know, with that groundwork, Norman could come back far more dangerous, and the return will be greater. And that's what I think we're going to see from Brian Norman Jr. It ain't over. He's 24, be 25. Today, I think he turned 25. It ain't over. And it's good to get what Mayweather would say, a minor setback for a major comeback. It's good to get that minor setback at his age. He's 24 years old. Look at Daniel Dubois. At a young age, got the minor setback, came back, became a champion, doing the business at heavyweight. It happens, man. You can't count somebody out because they got a loss. He didn't go in there and get, beat within an inch of his life. That's not what happened. He just went in there and he got caught with a shot, and it affected his confidence. And there were some rounds where he still came back and won some rounds, but the bottom line is I don't think he fully recovered from that shot. His dad said he was there, he was cognitive, he was firing on all cylinders, he was in the corner anyway, alert. But as far as in the ring, you can see that something changed, and it changed after he got hit with that big shot from Devin. Anyway, man, large up to fucking Brian Norman Jr. Still rocking with him. Got to give Devin respect. I gotta give him respect. But I still would have liked to see Devin take more risks. But I gotta remind myself, Devin is not that kind of fighter. If you look at how he fought Kambosos, you look at how he fought Lomachenko, he wasn't doing all that in there with Brian Norman Jr. So Devin is smart because he recognizes I got a real threat here in front of me. I can't just come in here and just start letting my hands go and going crazy, because if he throws something and times me, or he punches with me and gets the best of the exchange, he knew this man could hurt me. So at 147, I want to see how Devin does. I hear everybody, oh, Debo Dev, and Dev is back in this. Devin is a great fighter. Devin has a lot of experience. He won that fight last night based on his experience in landing that shot. In the rematch, it's going to be interesting because now Brian Norman Jr. is able to get some experience and say, okay, I got some shit I need to work on. Because you couldn't have told them that they were going to lose to Devin Haney. You couldn't have told me that. And you couldn't have told 99% of the people who actually sit down and break down fights. I was watching a little clip of Radio Raheem and Sean Zattel and them guys sitting there talking, and they were like, whoa, we got it wrong. Let me tell you something. Almost everybody got it wrong. So a couple of the birds who go out here talking about, y'all don't know shit about boxing. It makes me laugh. But these are the same ones who sit in the bushes and they're just watching. They won't make a prediction. They won't even come and try to break down a fight because they can't. They just sit back in the bushes waiting. If you get it right, they don't say nothing. But if you get it wrong, they'll sit there and want to just troll and harass the shit out you, which is hilarious to me. But they won't come out here and make no prediction because 9 times out of 10, they don't know what the hell they're looking at. Anyway, man, y'all can't wait for Norman Jr. to get back to business. I think the return will be greater. Fortunately, he didn't get destroyed in there where it could really affect his confidence. That's not what happened. What happened to Yardy is the kind of shit where I'm like, oh, man, I don't know if he'll ever be the same. Brian Norman Jr. will be just fine. Ain't nothing happened in there. He just got coochie-cooed for 12 rounds. That's it. He got hit with the bing in 1 round and coochie-cooed, chicken peck, and tickle for the rest. He'll be just fine. And I'm still rocking with him. And for Devin Haney and Bill Haney, Brian Norman Jr. and his dad, Brian Norman Sr., always keep that father-son union together, man. I hate when people say that, and I don't use the word hate, man. When they always out here talking about that the child should leave the father training. No, they shouldn't. Forget that shit. Because what they're doing is temporary. At the end of the day, when they make their money and retire, they sit back and chill. Don't do that. Most of these people saying that, they probably get out the shower to take a piss. Anyway, keep cool. I'm in the breeze.